Gary Coleman's ex-wife is under the spotlight for suspicion of his death. I'm gonna let a few hundred of y'all come in, then I'm going in, but in the meantime, in the between time, I'm going to give some shouts out to the early birds. What's up, Jada? I see you, I see you. What it do? Princess. What's up, Major Cass? Major Cass. Chris. Connie Hodge. What's up, Connie? Donna Witherspoon. What's up? What's up, Chuck D? What it do? Naomi Washington, Dinner Apron at War L. What's up? Grand Rising, Johnny B. Duval, Florida in the building. Delicious. What's up, Christopher? I see you, Jacqueline. Alexander Williams III. Slim Folk. Miss Mom. Is that Miss Mommy Ick? Joshua Foley. DeMarcus Johnson. Danny Round. Nina Painter. Rico Tucker, Greg Howard, Dorcas Christian, I Am, She Okay, Baby Girl, Jules Howard, Debo, What's Up, Jamaica, Boo Nast, Patriot News. I'm going in, fam, going in. If you go back down the timeline, fam, if you do a search, you'll see that I covered this story when it happened. And I said that the wife was suspicious. She was acting very, very suspicious. Well, there's a new A&E documentary out now. Well, it's coming out Thursday. And it is quite revealing. Gary Coleman's ex-wife, Shannon Price, took the lie detector test on TV over suspicions she had something to do with the 1980s TV star's death. And the results? Buckle up, boys and girls. Buckle up. A&E's new show, Lie Detector, Truth or Deception, where ex-FBI agent and polygraph pro George Olivio tells Shannon she flunked 2 of the key questions, with the results indicating some level of deception. Now, I already know that the lie detector test results cannot be admissible in court for evidence. We understand all of that. But what a lie detector test does is, depending on what the results is, it can make law enforcement either pursue you or keep it moving. And when you flunk the way she flunked, it might just compel at least one person over there, you know, that has jurisdiction to seek justice. I don't know. I'm not sure at all that they'll give the man justice, because the red flags were there. I called the red flags out when it happened, and they did nothing. They sat on their hands. Apparently, because They didn't want to solve the crime. They didn't care that this dude, if this dude was murdered or not. Case open, case closed, just like that. Shannon, for her part, after she flunked the lie detector test, she stayed cool as a cucumber. Yeah, so much so that the interviewer had to repeat his findings and ask if she had anything to say. Her response: calmly calling the results false. But George was all business, telling her flat out he didn't think she was being fully honest during the polygraph exam. And he's 100% convinced there's more to the story of Gary's demise. So Shannon, who took the polygraph test in January, was also asked if she ever struck Gary during their relationship and whether she intentionally decided to withhold help to Gary when he failed. The results of her answers to those questions were inconclusive. So let's go back to Gary's death in 2010. Let's go back to the death of Gary Coleman from Different Strokes, the star of Different Strokes, in 2010. Let's go back. So I'm gonna break this thing down for y'all, fam. And this is what Shannon Price said happened. This is what she said happened. She said she was upstairs when Gary fell. According to her, Gary was preparing food for them after he returned from dialysis. Now, family, I know a few people who have went through dialysis. Dialysis is a draining process. You don't just return home and start cooking after dialysis. You try to get yourself some rest. You try to relax because it is very physically draining. It's a physically draining process. But she claims after dialysis, Gary went home and started cooking for them. I'm not saying he couldn't have done that, but somebody would probably have to put a gun to his head. He'd have to be under duress. I just can't see a normal person doing something like that. But anyway, this is what she said happened. She said she was upstairs, Gary was downstairs preparing food, and she heard a big, loud boom. She goes down to check on Gary, and she found him on the kitchen floor, bleeding heavily. She called 911, but refused to help. She would not apply pressure to his chest as instructed by the 911 operator. She wouldn't do it. Why? She told them, "I'm gagging. I can't deal with this right now," and would not put pressure on the wound. She wouldn't put pressure on the wound or move him. She wouldn't do any of that. She wouldn't try to move him. She wouldn't put pressure. Now keep in mind, fam, this is somebody she supposedly loved. This is somebody who allowed her into his home, and he gave her a place to stay, put a roof over her head, gave her a bed and food to eat. He didn't just give her food to eat. He prepared the food according to her. She didn't accompany him to the hospital. Why? Shannon said she was too traumatized. Let me go back to somebody you love. Somebody you love is having an episode that could cost them their life. You don't know if this person hops into this ambulance and you'll never see them again. You don't know. This is somebody you love. Remember, fam. And you're all they have. Ain't nobody else there to hop into the ambulance to make sure everything goes well, right? To stand over them, right? To oversee what's going on. Nobody else is there. Only you. You're the only person at this moment they have in the world. And you decide you're too traumatized. Although they're the one who is experiencing a life threatening event, you the one who are so traumatized that you can't get into the ambulance and just accompany them to the hospital. I've heard stories where people who were in dire situations, who were near death, would hear a voice or see a person that they loved, uh, or feel the touch of a person, and they talk about how it would give them motivation to stay alive. Shannon wasn't trying to hear none of that. Now, family, if you think that's bad, watch this one. Gary Coleman had a do not resuscitate directive, which called for them to wait at least 2 weeks. If he was in a position where he was incapacitated and he was out for 2 weeks, go ahead, pull the plug. If he's on life support for 2 weeks, and you've done everything, you've tried all of the life-saving measures, okay, cool, let me go. 2 weeks. Guess how soon it was when Shannon pulled the plug? 2 days. Shannon pulled the plug in 2 days. First of all, I don't know if you've ever been in that situation. It is an extremely hard thing to do. It is a nerve-wracking, mind-rattling thing to do. To pull the plug on someone you love. That means that you don't think there's hope. You don't want that person to suffer. But at the same time, you want them to try to save them. You want them to do everything they can to save them. He had a head injury and she pulled the plug in 2 days. Did I mention that the directive called for her or anyone to not pull the plug until after all life-saving measures were exhausted? Don't pull the plug. Give me at least 2 weeks to fight. That's all Gary asked for. 2 weeks. Give me 2 weeks. A couple of times during their marriage. So she was abusive to Gary. Oh, and here's something that y'all should know. None of Gary's family or friends liked Shannon. I'm going to tell you why that's problematic. Because people who love you, people who care about you, understands how hard it is to find someone who is good for you, who loves you. They understand that. So even if it's somebody that may not have been their pick, if they think that person is good to you, that person is good for you. They will support you. They will support the union. Nobody liked Shannon. Nobody liked. They said that Shannon brought out the worst in Gary. Shannon brought out the worst in Gary. That's what they said. Nobody liked her. Nobody. You would at least think that at least one friend would let everybody else know. No, man, y'all got Shannon wrong. Shannon, you need to be around him. See, I understand what you're thinking, but I'm telling you, I've been around them, and I'm telling you, Shannon treats Gary like a king. She is so good to him. She is so good to him. Somebody, they found at least one person to say that. They couldn't find that person on planet Earth. Last I checked, they were still looking in Jupiter and some of the other planets. They were looking to find a person who would say that Shannon treated Gary well. They couldn't find one person on planet Earth. In fact, all of Gary's friends who was around them said that she was horrible to him. She treated him horribly. And it didn't even seem like Shannon was trying to hide how she mistreated Gary. So what this sounds like to me, fam, this is why it sounds suspicious. Let me break it down. This is why it sounds suspicious. You got the 911 behavior. I find it extremely alarming that she refused to help Gary Coleman while he was lying there dying. She refused to offer any help because, as she put it, she's traumatized. She refused to help. She's gagging. She's gagging. Hell, he's dying. Gary's friends described her as more worried about herself than the person she was calling 911 for. Advocate reports say that Gary didn't fall far enough to cause such severe injuries, given he was only 4'8" in stature. And his manager noted, it just begs questions after questions. He didn't fall far. And in regards to the distance and the injuries associated, it is inconsistent. The findings were, the advocates' reports was that the fall was not high enough to cause the injuries that he sustained. So the injuries are inconsistent with the fall. The quick withdrawal of life support. Anytime you have somebody anxious to pull that plug, you have to question motive. You have to question motive. Because I've been around people who had to make that decision. And it is an excruciating decision to make. I've been around people who have, and the crazy thing about it, fam, is that it's in God's hand. You don't know if that person, if you don't pull the plug. So you gotta just in your mind be all right with that. Because the last thing you want to do is pull that plug and think to yourself, be left with the idea that, you know what, if I hadn't pulled the plug, maybe she would have survived, maybe he would have survived. I witnessed a family go through that. Good friend of mine go through that. His family went through that. His mother had 8 kids. So they were split down the middle as to what to do. 4 wanted her to just let it go, pull the plug. 4 said no, under no circumstances are we pulling the plug. Now, usually the parties, if they have a right, if they have a say-so, the parties who say, and even if they don't have a say so, because a lot of times when one person that might have, one person may have the power of attorney, but they'll still respect everybody else's wishes because they don't want that on them. So you had 4 people for, 4 people against, and the reason I'd say the people who are against pulling the plug, they usually win out because, you just don't want that on your conscience. So they decided to not pull the plug. Miraculously, within, I think it was about a week, Mama came out that coma. Mama came out of that coma. Now think about that. Think about that. Mama came out that coma. She lived to be another year. She lived for another year. She lived to be another year older. She lived another year, and she was sick most of that time. But they were able to actually get closure. They were able to ask, questions, spend time with her. She was able to do something that she just loves doing, and that's cooking. She cooked for her son's wedding, and that was like one of the highlights of her life. She wanted to be here to cook, prepare the food for her son's wedding. Yeah, absolutely beautiful story, fam, and a beautiful ending. Sad but a beautiful ending. That's a tough situation to be in, and I've also been in situations where there was a dispute, and the plug was pulled anyway. And then there was the times when everybody was just, okay, let's just pull the plug. It's a really, really tough position to be in. But this woman, without seemingly consulting with any of his family, any of his loved ones, any of his friends, she just pulled the plug in 2 days. Although his directive allegedly said, give me 2 weeks to fight. Let them try all life-saving measures. Let them exhaust all life-saving measures before you pull the plug. And she pulled the plug in 2 days, not 2 weeks, as directed by Gary himself. Very suspicious. Extremely suspicious. I wouldn't have done it. If somebody tells me this is what their wishes are, I am going to carry those wishes through. So you had the quick withdrawal of life support. Although it's not admissible in court, she failed the polygraph miserably. So A&E has this new show, this upcoming show called Lie Detector, Truth or Deception. And she failed questions about whether she physically caused the fall, indicating deception. She failed. She failed the part of the question that asked whether she physically caused the fall, indicating deception. And then, of course, you have the history of abuse, which is always cause for pause. History of deception is usually that thing that will make, not history of deception, but the history of abuse and legal disputes. Abuse and legal disputes. A history of that is usually motive. Yeah. Police see something like that, oh yeah, you suspect number one. You are suspect number one. But Shannon it appears, was never treated like a suspect. I couldn't have been on the case. I would have investigated her ass to the end of earth. As soon as I saw all of that and her started piecing together evidence, I'm like, oh yeah, she did it. In my mind, I'm like, yeah, she did it. She had to do it. If she didn't do it, I'm gonna get to the bottom of it. I'm gonna find out if she did it or not. Oh, I would have investigated. I would have my answers by now. But it seems like they don't have any. They didn't have any investigators out there where that happened. Let's say, yeah, it happened in Arizona, I believe. But yeah, it seems like they don't have any investigators in Arizona. Utah. Intermountain Health Utah Valley Hospital in Provar, Utah is where Gary Coleman died. He died on May 28, 2010 in Utah. So it appears that they don't have investigators in Utah, because had there been an investigator in Utah, wait, let me put it like this. It seems like they don't have any reputable investigators in Utah, because Ray Charles, even in death, can see that something is suspicious about this chick and she should have been investigated. At the very least, if you don't find something, you don't find something. But at the very least, you need to investigate. Got to investigate. But they didn't do that. They didn't do that. I guess she didn't fit the description of a suspect. Yeah. So in summary, Shannon claims that she claims that it was an accidental fall. She was overwhelmed, didn't harm him, and followed standard procedure based on doctor's advice. And here's why it looks suspicious. Her reaction during the emergency seemed odd and uncaringly suspicious. Odd and uncaring. The seriousness of the injuries didn't align with how he supposedly fell. Listen to what I'm saying, fam. The seriousness of his issues, of the injuries, did not align with how he supposedly fell. That's an arrest warrant right there, fam. Right, just that alone. The seriousness of the injuries didn't align with how he supposedly fell. She rushed the decision to end life support. What about that? She failed a polygraph on key questions about causing his fall. There's a documented pattern of abuse and contradictory statements. So that's my case, fam. If I was the detective, that's my case. I just brought this case to the prosecutor. Prosecutor, Utah. I just brought in Provo. I just brought you the case. I brought you my findings. Now, what you gonna do about it? What are you gonna do about it? I just brought you the findings. What are you gonna do about it? Bookhouse DC, what up? Now keep in mind, fam, she wasn't even his wife at the time. She was the ex-wife. Ex-wife. She shouldn't have even had the power to pull the plug. The family should have sued the hospital. She should not have had the power to pull that plug. So there has to be some liability on behalf of the hospital, the physicians on duty. You mean tell me if I end up in the hospital incapacitated, anybody can just jump in the ambulance, anybody can just show up in the hospital room, and long as they say they used to be with me, or they say they know me, they can direct you to pull the plug because ain't nobody else is there. Because you know, a lot of times the hospitals, they want to pull that plug to get rid of you. They don't want you to. If they don't think they can bill, if they don't think they can bill the insurance, if you ain't got no insurance, they definitely will let you die. But if they don't think that they can bill, if they don't think that they can bill for that time that you're there, they're trying to get you out of there by any means necessary. If you can't get up and walk out that door, they'll roll you out. If they can't roll you out, they'll roll you out. They can't roll you out like this in a wheelchair, they'll roll you out on that stretcher inside of a bag. Yeah, fam. It's a cold, cold game. Cold game. What's up, Nikki? That's my time, fam. I appreciate y'all joining the live. Until next time, enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world. I do have a few more lives to do today, so get ready, y'all. Till next time, enjoy yourself. R.I.P. Gary Coleman. May justice be served someday soon. No more talk.